Hey everyone, we are going to be doing my daily stretch routine today. So that's going to start in a forward fold, and we are just going to move freely during this. So this is the stretch routine that I do every day. You can do it while you're watching TV or while you're hanging out with friends. Everybody knows that I'm probably going to stretch if you're coming to hang out for an hour. So keep your back leg straight and bend your front leg over your back leg. And you're going to feel this in the outside of your glutes. It's a really good stretch modification. In all these stretches that we're going to be doing today, I try and keep a rule of 30 seconds. So I may move in and out of stretches just however my body is feeling comfortable. And sometimes I get deep into the stretches and sometimes I don't, and that's totally fine. Your body is going to have differences that come and go day to day, and I'm okay with that. Alright, so come into a downward dog. So what I'm doing here is I'm feeling my shoulders, and I'm seeing how my back is feeling and just how I'm moving, if I'm catching anywhere. Pedal the feet out. I love downward dog. I incorporate it into all my practices. Go ahead and kick one foot up, open your hip, and then lean that foot over and step the foot to the outside of your hand. And then we're going to do that on the other side. This is a great hip opener. This is also letting me know if I'm catching anywhere. And here I'm feeling how my hip flexors are today. Awesome, guys. So I like to do a quad stretch first. It's also a hip flexor stretch. And I like to do this first because I do incorporate the splits into this practice. And you always need to stretch your hip flexors before you do your middle splits to avoid hip impingement. It's the most common issue with reaching the splits. It's just like a real tightness in your hip when you're doing your middle split. And then from here, some days I like to get a strap and move into King Pigeon Pose. But these are my very basic stretches that I do daily, so I will not be doing that. And you can hold your foot wherever is comfortable. When I first started doing this stretch, I could not reach my back foot with my hand. It was in an L shape, and my back actually was not strong enough to hold my body upright either. So wherever you are, remember, we have all been there, and just keep going, and you'll be surprised at what your body can do. Right, and I like to go into a camel pose. This, instead of doing a unilateral hip stretch, this is seeing the flexibility of both my hips, and I can also lean into my back and see how my back is today. Alright, and now we are going to go into the frog pose. Here I'm just trying to figure out the best angle for you guys. So the frog pose is one of my favorites. It is a must-do if you want to do middle splits. It is also incredible for your hips. So this pose will tell you a lot about where you are at with your hip mobility and flexibility. And I like to move quite a bit during this pose and see where it is that my hips need more attention. While I'm doing this pose, I am tilting my hips, I am doing circles, I am leaning into one side and then the other. Just really try to get a feel for how your hips are and what they need. So after having my feet at a 90-degree angle, I move them in closer to each other, and I again just feel out how my hips are doing. So I've moved back into the 90-degree angle because one of my hips needed a little bit of extra attention. Remember to breathe while you're doing this. Awesome. And then I'm going to grab my blocks, and I like to move into an upward facing dog because I usually get a pop in my hips after doing the frog pose. So opening forward allows more space in the hip joint. So try, and after you've done an intense hip stretch, to try and open them up forward. And then after this, I have moved into puppy pose. I use blocks. You can just leave your hands on the ground and not use a block. The block makes it more intense. I hold this for 30 seconds. And then I like to round my spine before I move into the next shoulder stretch, where I put my elbows on the blocks and I push my chest into the ground. So you can also do this without the blocks. The blocks, again, make it more intense. And I hold this for 30 seconds. Awesome, guys. Starting to move out of that. And I'm going to go back into my frog pose. And what I'm doing here is I am making sure that the hip tightness that I felt earlier is gone. So I won't do this every day, but I did it today because I felt a pinch in my hip. So I just wanted to make sure that is gone before I move on. And if it was not gone, I would just spend some more time with it. Again, your body changes day to day. So from here, I move into just a seated middle split. I'm not in a full middle split here. There's a little bit of a V shape instead of just a straight line between my feet. And I like to move a lot here as well. So when you're first starting a pose, so say you haven't done one of these before and it's your first time doing it, try and just hold it static. So hold it still for 30 seconds and make sure that your body is okay with it and you're flexible enough and also strong enough to maintain that shape before you move into the free movements and the wave-like motions. So here I like to add some lat stretches, and on a day that I want to practice some more and I'm doing more than just the basics, I actually stretch my upper body a little bit more here while I'm in this seated split. And then from here, I'm going to push myself into a full middle split. And I'm going to lean over. So this is obviously more intense than seated. So I like to hold this for about 60 seconds. And during this 60 seconds, I try and continue to move, but you'll notice that I am much more static in this, and that's because it is more intense. And then on days that you want to practice more, you can add blocks under your feet if you would like to. And while you're moving into this, try and curve and round your back, and it's really gonna enlighten you on anywhere in your middle split that can be improved. Alright guys, and I am gonna do a twist here. And then a twist on the other side. And on days that I'm doing a longer practice, I will take my wheel pose, my yoga wheel, and I will actually move out of this using the yoga wheel and then start to practice with that. And then we are gonna windshield wiper our legs just to kind of allow them to move back into place. And then I like to do the upward facing dog again, and if there's gonna be any other pops in my hips, it's gonna be here after doing my middle split. And you'll notice I have much more freedom in my hips this time. And here I'm just resetting my hips really, and then moving into a triangle pose. So I love to use the triangle pose. I do like 10 seconds in each variation. So I love it because you can stretch forward, you can open to the outside, and then you can turn your foot and open on the inside. So it gets every possible angle. And on days that the outside of my leg is tighter, I will spend more time there. And when you're opening the inside of your leg in this pose here, make sure that you've turned your back foot out. Notice I turned it from forward to just a little bit of an angle. So my left leg is tighter than my right leg. And I like to give it more movement and see what it needs. Sometimes I'll spend quite a bit longer on my left leg than my right leg, just so my flexibility is even. So I'm stretching the outside of my leg here, middle, and then I will turn my back foot before I stretch the inside of my leg. Alright, and then I'm going to move into forward fold. After doing a unilateral stretch, just like something that's on one leg, I like to stretch with both my legs evenly, and that's why I kind of see where I am with a forward fold. And from there, we're going to move into a pigeon pose. This is one of my absolute favorite stretches. Just be sure that you are not doing the pigeon pose before you are doing middle splits, because if you are stretching your gluteus medius before your middle splits, you're more likely to have a hip impingement. We need our gluteus medius for our middle split. We need to keep it strong. So if we've stretched it and lengthened it and we haven't lengthened our hip flexors, we are more likely to get a hip impingement. So still in the pigeon pose, I like to lean forward and then I like to come up and do an extra quad and hip flexor stretch, see where I'm at there. I do a lot of check-ins through this 30-minute practice. And again, my left leg is less flexible than my right leg, so I spend more time on it. Awesome, guys. We are going to move out of here and we are going to go into a seated forward fold. So walk your sits bones like kind of away from each other just to make sure that your hips are really square while you're seated. And I like to do a lot of movement in this pose. And I incorporate a lat stretch. Your lats are also important to stretch because they move power from your lower body to your upper body. And so we need to make sure that we stretch them as well as strengthen them. Don't neglect your lats. And when I'm in my seated forward fold, I like to put my hands on the back of my head just so I am not like pulling my body. I'm just kind of letting its own weight fold over itself. And I like to move my feet away from each other and closer to each other. And this kind of helps me feel out my hip flexors even more, because when you keep your heels on the ground and you kind of windshield wiper your feet, you'll feel that in your hip flexors. All right, guys, we are moving into the final sequence that will end with a split, front split. And so we're going into a low lunge, and you can stay there or you can kick your foot up into your hand. And if you're having a deeper practice, you can grab your yoga strap and you can open up the front body and move into a back bend. There's a lot of movement you can do here, a lot of different places that you can feel this stretch. So if you are comfortable and your body is comfortable, move as much as you feel you should in this pose. And then we are going to go into a half split. This is a must do if you're doing your front splits. Try and hold this for 30 seconds. And I like to open up my outer hip even more here because for me that's what is usually still tight here. Awesome. And then I am going to switch back and forth between low lunge and the half split. And I'm just feeling my body out and I'm making sure that I'm ready to move into my split. And when I move into my split, I just kind of listen to my body. Like I have only been doing the minimum stretches for about the past 3 days, and I haven't even moved fully into my split. So I had no idea where my body was going to be. But wherever your body is, just be okay with it. Just breathe and relax and listen to your body, what your body needs. And then I'm going to move out of the split. Just let my body adjust really quickly. And then we are going to repeat on the opposite side. So going into that low lunge. So my right hip flexor is actually more flexible and has more mobility, and my left hamstring is tighter. So my split on this side is a little trickier just because I have some restriction in my left hamstring, but not as much restriction in my right hip flexor. And so if you find this is true for you as well, because we all have a more flexible side and a less flexible side, just be very patient. I will spend extra time on my left hamstring when I am trying to get my split even, and it does even out, but it does take more time. And you'll see here, I know that my left hamstring, the outer part of my leg, is tighter, so I actually go ahead and start with the outside of my left hamstring. And you'll start to notice these differences with your body as well. Alright, and then I'm gonna switch back and forth between a low lunge and a half split. And then I'll move down into my split. And so on this side, if my hamstring is just too tight to sit comfortably in the split, which it is here, probably because I have not moved fully into my splits for about 3 days, I will come out of the split and then move back into it. So I'm just going to give my hamstring some time to adjust, and then I'm going to move back into my split. In the past 3 days where I just do my minimum, I will just hold whatever my body gives me for 30 seconds, and then I'll end my practice. Or I'll end that pose. And thank you so much for joining my daily stretch routine. I hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe. There will be more videos to come. We are just getting started. So like, subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram under the same name.